Hi, Phil here again with another review inside my car, another video. Check out my dash cam. Isn't that cool? Anyway, just trying to get this camera set up to somewhere, reasonable. Certainly reasonable, I should hope. I hope this is working. Well, I am going to have a food review of sorts. We got another one here. Not so different from the other ones. But, my intentions are to try out the food, test it out, have a little bit of a ramble. And here we have something new. Dr. Pepper and cream soda normally are quite good. But together? So it's both of those things combined together. It's interesting. It's worth trying out, I should think. Separately, they're just fine. But once again, I am trying to have some trouble setting up this camera. Let's try this rather unflattering position right about here. Yeah. So, here it is. Dr. Pepper, supposedly another, limited time offer. It's probably very good, I suppose. Let's make sure we don't get the camera stained with any soft drink again. Oh dear. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. We got trouble. High pressure. I didn't shake this. I've let this... Man, I did not shake this. I did not shake this bottle. I didn't shake it around. I let it sit for a long time, long enough, and I'm shocked. I'm shocked that it's a highly pressurized fizzy thing that's gonna burst out into fluid all over the inside of my car. Oh, that's no good. Ugh. All right, now we're in good condition. Let's test it out. Pretty good. Pretty good. It definitely does have the taste of a Dr. Pepper, but I'm not sure about the cream soda. Yeah, it's in there. Cream soda. Yeah. I can kind of taste it in there. It definitely does have a blend, and, the cream soda, it's always this creamy, delicious, sweet stuff that's real nice. And Dr. Pepper has its own unique taste, too. It's very, very peppery, you should say. But the thing is, you gotta drink things other than Dr. Pepper soda, because then you'll get dehydrated, despite the fact you're drinking liquids all the time. Well, there's stories about people having to go to the hospital because they get dehydrated because they're drinking nothing but Dr. Pepper, and they're thinking, oh, well, it's a liquid. It's just as good as water, I suppose. And I'm like, no. Cream soda, I imagine that's very sugary, sweet, and not so healthy for you. Comes in a variety of different colors. There's pink and clear, I think. Yeah. And so much of it in here, it almost bursts out. It's like that expression, they broke the mold. But I'm trying to interpret the meaning of that statement. When they say, like, it's a compliment expression, where they say, that was so good, like, you're so amazing. When they made you, they broke the mold. And I'm like saying, what does that mean? Are you saying that, the liquid stuff that's being filled into mold, which is, how it's constructed and such, like clay or glass or plastic or something, they had too much substance on there that it overflowed and broke the machine? Well, that doesn't really lead to a good thing. That leads to the mold being broken, and now you can't make a copy of it, and the actual substance could be non-solid and overflowing liquid that's no good? Or is it the idea they broke the mold after they made it? Like, we're going to make this one and nothing else, like, because it's unique. And once we've completed it, we'll dispose of the mold, and it can never be replicated again. Which I think maybe that's more of a compliment, but either way, it seems like strange behavior. If you can make something good, why wouldn't you want to be able to make it again? And I've got it stained all over me, and I am sticky. How disgusting. Yeah. Oh boy. A few thoughts I've had recently. I've come to a bit of an existential sort of discovery. From all these stories I hear about RPG horror stories and, people complaining about their Dungeons and Dragons group, I've come to a realization. The players, the people who make these complaints and such, those players would absolutely despise conventional games. Think about it. Chess. There's hardly any role-playing in chess. All you do is make the moves of the pieces against your opponent, who doesn't really have much of a conversation with you anyway. And if they do, it's exclusively meta commentary, because they're thinking, I see what you're doing. I'm very smart. I know what you're planning. And things like that. And not something more role-play involved, like, my brave knights shall ascend to the throne of this foreign kingdom, conquer it, and soon I shall be the king of their land, and things like that. But no, none of that ever happens in a game of chess, unlike a game of D&D. And if they're anything at all like that, they probably despise the concept of such a thing, like all meta commentary, all metagaming, and no role-playing inside of that, and controlling multiple character pieces with barely any definition to themselves. Like, you get 2 knights, 2 bishops, a king and a queen, 2 rooks, which are buildings that are able to move around of their own accord somehow, and 8 pawns, who are like the ground troops, the rank and file cannon fodder of the army. And I'm like, okay, there's no dialogue about them, there's no backstory, no personality. You don't really get much dialogue on their story and how they came to find themselves in this army, this war, and why they're fighting against an opposing side whose only difference is the color, because otherwise they're all literally equal, like every single piece from the beginning. And also there are no mechanical differences between the two. No one's counting your strength score, no one's counting what weapon you're using, no ability modifiers, no magic spells of any kind, there's no constitution taken into account, no hit points either. You get 1 hit and you're dead. Like, everyone's on a duel to the death sort of battle. If you get hit by one thing, you're out. And it doesn't matter what you're being struck by. If they've gotten into your position, the piece goes and it's out. It's done. And yeah. So that means a knight can slay a king or a bishop or a rook or a pawn or anything like that. And like, okay, it's a military fighter of sorts. But now the building, the rook, is able to move around of its own accord. Okay, I'm not sure how that works. And it is able to attack enemies, like a building picking a fight with a living person. Can you imagine that? An entire building picking a fight with you, moving around of its own. Okay, that I'm sure would be an instant kill, because that thing could crush me to death. But then the reverse of that. One pawn can take out a rook in the right place. So I'm thinking, so one man, unarmed, possibly, maybe, or not, only armed with medieval technology, irrelevant. They'll destroy an entire building in one swipe. The religious bishop can do it as well. The king and the queen, who are supposed to be nobility, who don't partake in their armed conflict in person, yet they can do it. And in fact, quite the opposite message of what feminists would complain about, because in chess, the queen is the most powerful unit. Like, she can do anything. She can move any distance, any direction. Like, she's the real boss, and the king's like, oh, okay, ma'am, I'll do what you say. The queen, much like in Alice in Wonderland, she charges in and like, off with your head, and she swipes him down in one stroke. That's chess for you. That's just how it is. And wow, I mean, my goodness, like, if you try comparing chess to Dungeons and Dragons, it's really quite a difference. And another thing, there is no rolling for initiative. There is no modifiers for dexterity to determine who goes first and such, and who's faster than the other. No. Tradition says white goes first, and it's one after the other every time. So, yeah. No turn order or anything, just one and then the other. And that's just it. There's only effort. Despite being two massive armies fighting each other, there's only 2 turns in the entire round. One and then the other. One and then the other every time until the game's over. And the more I think about it, Dungeons and Dragons players would absolutely despise the game when you think about it. Like, I'm just trying to, coming at this from a whole different perspective. But, of course, I was playing chess before I was playing Dungeons and Dragons. So, of course, the perspective I'm coming from it. But it's just something odd to think about. What would they think of Monopoly? Like, the pieces move across the board and then say, wait, where's the dragon? Where's the goblin? Where are the orcs? Why can't we use violence to solve our problems? What's all this talk of money and buying property? Like, such things should happen after I've achieved my goal, after the quest, after I've been rewarded with gold and treasure from my amazing adventure that I've had. But I have it all at the beginning, and I could potentially earn more. And then I become this landlord who buys a property all around this big square. Like, is it a city block? What city are we in? New York, supposedly. And it's just so strange. Monopoly, and you can't resort to violence in Monopoly. I mean, think about it. You're all law-abiding people who are trying to run a business. If any of you were to do that, you'd go straight to jail. Just like, and yes, it would happen because there's already a gameplay mechanic in there. Yeah. Playing Monopoly. I remember this really weird story from my childhood. I think it was a teacher who was reading it off in class and trying to read through the story. It was about some person who got lost in New York City and was trying to navigate the places, names of the streets and the buildings and such, and the avenues, the different districts and neighborhoods and such. And I'm thinking, okay, you should use actual geography for this, like an actual map. But no, he's like, I know how to solve this problem. I played a game of Monopoly once, and all the buildings and locations are named after places that are very much real in the city. There's Madison Square Gardens or something. There's the Bronx. There's Hell's Kitchen. There's Harlem. There's Central Park. There's all the different districts, Queens and Broadway and such. And how do you do this? You're referencing a game of Monopoly and using it as geography in place of a map. This is so strange. What a strange thing to think. Most of the time, people don't even play original Monopoly. Most of the time, people are not playing a game of original Monopoly. What they're doing is playing some gimmicky variant because they always reskin it with different themes. I played one that's Star Wars, the Phantom Menace themed, and of course all the location names are replaced with locations in the movie, like Naboo and Coruscant, and the Trade Federation's blockade system, and okay, there's Tatooine and such. I could go on and on because there's tons of gimmicks to these games and such. I don't even know how to play backgammon. I don't know. And Yahtzee, I probably forgot how to play that. It's got loads of dice. Almost as much dice as a game of D&D. And I'm thinking, I would just be curious to see what their perspective is on these games. I mean, like, these are normal games that everyone's heard of. Checkers is like this super low intellect version of chess. Because, you know, chess is for intellectuals. On another subject, I have this trouble with temperature and like understanding degrees of temperature. Now, of course, I am no stranger to math, not at all, not at all. I like math. I was good at it, and this is even simpler than math because understanding temperature, it's just a linear set of numbers. It goes up in one direction and down in another. Like there's 1, 2, like 10 degrees Celsius is more than 1 degree Celsius. There's 0 and there's negative numbers. -0, you know, like 50 below 0, that's probably very cold. But the trouble is I have difficulty putting emotions into it. Like apparently there's supposed to be an emotional connection to these numbers. Like this is comfortable and this is not comfortable. That's too cold and that's too hot. And I can only kind of guess at what's right. Now the thing about Celsius, from what I've been taught, is that it is built to be a more understandable system. It's sort of like what we do with metric. You see, Celsius has degrees, and they've set each degrees as very important parts. Let me explain. 0 degrees Celsius is the freezing point of water. That's when it's so cold that water solidifies and becomes ice. Okay, and another milestone, a bench point number, is 100 degrees Celsius. Now that is the boiling point of water. That's when water ceases to be liquid and boils into vapor. Okay, so they're using two natural phenomenons as the basis of comparison. 0 degrees Celsius is freezing point of water. 100 degrees Celsius is the boiling point of water. Okay, that makes sense. But what doesn't make sense is when people try associating emotions with these numbers. Which one is comfortable for you? Which is good? Because a cold drink on a hot day, that feels good. A warm meal on a cold day, that feels good. But how do I connect the two exactly? Like, I can't go in water that is below 0 degrees Celsius because that's frozen. It's solidified. I can't even physically move through it. Like, that would be unthinkable. You would literally be frozen if that happened. Like, and then things get colder and colder until it's uncomfortable. But I remember specifically when I was trying to go swimming in a pool. We had this pool. We noticed the temperature was like 90-ish, and it was described as bath water. It was supposed to be really comfortable. But I'm like, 90 degrees? Okay, but if it goes a few more degrees higher, it'll reach 100 degrees, which is boiling point water. If it's boiling water, wouldn't that be agonizing to the touch? Like, touching boiling water is super dangerous, and it would agonize to the touch. You touch it and ow. Like, you could even get degrees of burns, and your skin gets all discolored and in serious pain, and you ought to go to the hospital. And I'm thinking, so that's agony? That is agony. But it's only a few degrees more than what would be comfortable. So I'm trying to understand connecting emotions to these concepts. Trying to understand how to connect emotion to these numbers. And I've been in a jacuzzi. Doesn't that technically count as boiling water? You know, a hot tub. It's very warm. It's bubbling. And supposedly for safety reasons, you can't actually be fully submerged in it because then you can't have any sort of convection. the heat conducting through your body needs to go out through your head, which is above the water, and convection, which I've learned about physics and such in school. Yeah, that makes sense, because if you go too far, then you are submerged in the water and you are boiling, and that is going to become a danger to your health. So you can't go bobbing your head underneath the water for too long, because then it's like you're boiling an egg in hot boiled water, and that's no good for you. But you can rest comfortably in a jacuzzi, and it's comfortable, but supposedly it's pretty close to boiling water. So I'm trying to understand the concept of putting emotions to these things. And I remember this math question they asked in high school, and I'm like, okay, I got all the numbers right. Like, this number is larger than the other number. That means this number is hotter than the other one. You see, the number increases the hotter it goes. It decreases the colder it goes. So I can understand that. But then I have to wonder which is comfortable. Are you really going to be? Because the question asks, would you be more comfortable here or there? And I'm like, okay, but I don't know which one's good to the touch. I don't know which one is feeling good and comfortable. So if it's hotter in the city because of all the light reflecting off the city buildings and the machines generating heat, it's 10 degrees hotter in the city than it is out in the country. So which one's more comfortable? Well, if I want to be warm on a cold day, then I would want to go where it's warmer in the city. If I'm feeling too hot on an already cold day, I want to get out of there. I want to go somewhere colder on a hot day. So that would be the more appealing thing on an emotional level. So I'm just trying to connect these concepts together, and it just doesn't seem to work. Maybe the solution is I should just pay more closer attention to the temperature whenever I go, but no, I don't really do that. I don't need to do math and numbers to understand if I am happy or comfortable or not. How could that work on an emotional level? Why would I need to do a math equation to determine if I'm feeling happy or not? Why would I need to count numbers in order to determine if I am comfortable or not? No, those are just feelings. Those are emotions. That's something that comes from inside. You don't do that. And I'm just trying to think, how do people connect those two concepts together? It's something that's been bugging me ever since I was a young kid. Good soda, though. Very good soda. And it sucks. I've been trying to. No, the soda's good, but what I'm about to say, I'm disappointed with. There's that new edition of Dungeons and Dragons, 2024 rules. They call it that because it was released in the year 2024, which is still this year. And I don't know, man. Okay, they want to revise the rules and make an improvement upon. Okay, sure, but aren't you supposed to give it a name? Like, couldn't you change the edition number? Like, it doesn't necessarily a whole different thing from 5th edition. You could call it 5.5. And it's not unprecedented to do that when, it's happened before. There was 3.5, because that's a minor tweak on a rule that already existed. The 3rd edition, it's a modification of that. 3.5, and that was generally well received by the public. It was very well acclaimed, as I recall. I actually did buy the books a while back. It was a long time ago, but I did try and read up the Dungeons & Master's Guide, the Player's Handbook, and the Monster Manual. And I was excited. I never got around to playing that one. And I suppose I already sold off the books in a garage sale. I'm like, it's big, it's clunkier. if I were to draw a comparison between 3.5 and 5th edition, I'd say that there is more variety with 3.5. Maybe. Hold on. On second thought, my perspective is a bit skewed, but you have to remember, I only had the 3 core rulebooks and not all the expanded material, because there's loads of expanded material, supposedly. And supposedly one of the criticisms of that is that the rules weren't put together all cohesively, so it's adding in new things. And if you tried collecting multiple supplements and such, and put them all together into this wild thing, you could come up with insane ideas that are game-breaking and such. And on a similar note, maybe 5th edition had the same problem, but I can't help but feel you've made it also very convenient. If you have Wikipedias and websites and things where people have collected and assembled all of the information found in the books and put on the internet, available for free. And you don't even have to do piracy with the PDFs, because people are just handing it out for free. In fact, I dare say search engines like Google, they use AI to extrapolate information from websites. So even the search engine itself can actually extract the information and answer your questions without visiting the website itself. And that's I imagine all that stuff that's looking like copyright infringement to Hasbro, and they're not happy about that at all. And they're like, well, maybe you shouldn't make D&D Beyond an expensive old thing. It's just so easy to get information for free. We are living in the age of the internet, after all. And maybe it's simply because that is so convenient to me that all the homebrew and, well, yes, also the homebrew and official stuff and all the supplementary material, it's all easy to get in one go. What a wild sort of evening it's been. Rainy old night. And I'm thinking, maybe I just don't have the full picture, despite the fact that I've been trying to research as much as I can. And, yeah. There's something else I should mention about Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. I have been trying to, make characters with it, but I've come to a realization. It's about the fighter class. Now, as you can imagine, the fighter class has the most variety of different styles of fighting. There's not just, swords. There's swords and shields, 2 swords at one time, swords in one hand for dueling, archery, crossbows, all sorts of gimmicky fighting styles, like fighting in the dark, blind fighting, pugilism, unarmed fighting, hands, fighting with spears, fighting with 2 hands on your weapon, fighting with 1 hand in your weapon. Sometimes you incorporate magic into there as well. And, yeah, so many different varieties of fighting styles. In fact, the fighter class gets a different fighting style right from the very start, just from level 1. Now, there is, last I saw on the listings, the sources I got, there's at least 14 different fighting styles, which includes Unearthed Arcana, which is sort of the beta test phase of things. It's when it's not really official, but they are testing it out to see if it works. It's what's called Unearthed Arcana. Now, that's all well and good, but 14 different fighting styles. Remember that number, because that's a big number. There's also a phenomenon in 5th edition called subclasses. So rather than multi-classing in a different class just to get every little feature you want, just to tweak your character just right, there's a more convenient method that involves subclasses. You can pick from a multitude of different classes for each class, multitude of subclasses for each class. Now, this phenomenon, it's a neat idea, but it also has loads of different potential, because now you imagine, what if your character went down a different path in life? What if they did something else? Now, the point I'm getting at is subclasses. I'm sorry for getting off topic, but subclasses. There are 10 different types of fighter subclasses. And, they all give a different sort of style, a different spin on these things. There's the Banneret, which is all about motivating the troops, holding the banister, and saying, all right, team, let's go, and motivating and keeping up good morale. There's the Battlemaster, which is all about having skill and multiple styles of fighting and such. Like, you understand, this is an ambush, or I know how to disarm my opponent, and I know how to scare them off and such. And there's the Champion, which is just generally good at fighting altogether, and he's very sturdy and tough. There's the Cavalier, which is all about cavalry fighting on your horse, and you ride it and then you fight. Arcane Archer, so magic and archery. Eldritch Knight, which is magic, not necessarily related to archery, but of any kind. There's Psy Warrior, which has been compared to the Jedi from Star Wars. And Echo Knight, I don't even get what that's about. Apparently you get this, your shadow becomes a double, a sort of clone who's on your side, and you can get your clone to give you help, so you got two people fighting at one time. And there's all stuff, sort of things like that. And the Samurai, of course you gotta have Samurai. It's weeb time, it's anime times. For honor. Death before dishonor. And, that sort of thing. And, of course, there's all that stuff in there. But you'll notice there are 10 different subclasses and 14 different fighting styles. And you can combine these together inevitably, because you'll pick one, and then at level 3, you'll have to pick the subclasses, the others. So, you're picking two possible variables. You have two variables to count, and you get a combination of the two. But you'll notice that's 14 times 10, which comes to 140 different combinations. And that is enormous, in my opinion. It's the largest you'll find. Too large, in my opinion, because it's huge. I'm still working on trying to sort out all the numbers of it all. I'm still trying to sort out all the numbers of it and build examples of each kind of character combination, but I've even made charts about it. There's going to be 140 different characters, and they're all fighters of some kind. They're all have their own subclass, and they've all reached level 3 and have picked out a subclass. So, there's things that make sense. A samurai that keeps his two hands on his weapon. Great weapon fighting style, great weapon mastery, and subclass samurai. So that's two hands on your katana sword. Okay, makes sense. But then there's also things like archery and dueling, two weapons fighting, unarmed fighting, fighting with a sword and shield, fighting to intercept others. It's all about getting your shield and keeping it in the way of an enemy who's coming on and attacking your friends. Protection, fighting style, combined with all sorts of different subclasses. So there's the Banneret, so you could protect people and inspire them. There's the Cavalier, so you can protect people while riding a horse. And you'll notice there are so many different combinations. Some of them are very strange ideas, like unarmed fighting plus arcane archery. So you've been fighting with your bare hands for so long, but now you want to use magic archery. Okay. Or a Cavalier in unarmed fighting. So you want to ride into battle on your horse, but you're not carrying any weapons. You're just fighting with your bare hands. And not even cowboys do that. What on earth? And then there's ideas like a samurai who fights with his bare hands. Well, isn't that more like martial arts? Isn't that more like Kung Fu, Shaolin monk sort of fighting? Yeah. Yeah. Wait. Fine. Prepare yourself. Ich, ni, san, ji. Hoi. And you fight like some kid at his local community center. He's like, I'm gonna get a black belt someday. He's like, and that stuff. And he's like, okay. But then there's weird combinations, like duelist, but also archery. So you've been fighting with one sword, but now you want to do archery, and then there's archers, but then there's all about using a shield to protect others. There's so many combinations that come out as really strange when you think about it. Very strange. I like it. It's a vast variety, but also it's a lot of different combinations, and here I am trying to try out each one and at least have a sample for each one, and now I realize it's over 100 different choices, and this is going to take me a while to sort out. And it's going to be a long time. And to compare that to the other ones, to a lesser degree, there's also the paladins, who are also kind of a type of fighter, but ones with magic spells of sorts from their devotion, their oaths. These are the noble knights in shining armor, and they say, I am fighting for a cause. I shall make the world good. I shall be its redeemer, for I am the Oath of Redemption Paladin. I seek to make the world a good place. Like, I am the Oath of Conquest Paladin. I'm an evil paladin who wants to rule the world. I shall conquer all. Ha ha ha. And then there's like, I am the Oath of Ancients. I serve nature. And other such things like that. And there's so many different fighting styles yet again, combined with different subclasses. And yet again, it's multiplying numbers into a different sort of, well, different combinations. And that one is at least 100, I'm sure. And Rangers also do it, because the Rangers have different fighting styles, despite the fact the name Ranger implies they're fighting with ranged combat, so arrows. But, you know, they've got some things in common with fighters. So, that means Rangers have different subclasses, as well as different fighting style, and you can combine those together. So this one's all about being a beastmaster and ordering your animal pets to do your bidding. This one's all about being a gloom stalker, so like an extra edgy ranger who's always about, I hunt monsters and I hide in the monster's realm and I sneak around in the dark. And then there's things like the Fey Wanderers, like, I'm best friends with the fairies. I go to their place all the time and I just am best of chums with them. They gave me magic powers and I'm gonna have such a gleeful, happy life. I'm sure nothing's gonna go wrong. Uh-oh, here comes the arrow with iron. Cold iron, I should say. Oh no, cold iron. The fairy's kryptonite. Oh no, it's gonna destroy my very soul. Drops dead. Because I guess this is now a crossover with Changeling the Dreaming. Another role-playing game that's quite interesting. Oh, I should really try out more. I should. Oh dear. Well, so there's all kinds of different things for each different class. The cleric gets their subclasses right from the very start at level 1, because there's so many different types of clerics. It's not even really connected to any particular god or religion or theology and such. It's actually more thematically defined. Like, there's the domain of life, the domain of death, of war, of peace, of nature, of the wind, of the weather, and all sorts of themes. Like, more like a theme of the you're going with in your cleric style. Because in theory, you could interpret, God or religion and such in a different way, despite the thematic sort of associations with them. So, you want to be a cleric of the ocean, of the sea, and such. Well, maybe you worship Neptune, god of the sea. You want to be a cleric of nature. Well, there's Gaia, goddess of nature and such. You want to be a war domain cleric. Well, then there's Ares, the god of war and such. But then there's, beyond thematic stuff, there's alternate interpretations of the same religion and such. You can look at real-world religions. There's so many different types. I'm getting off topic, aren't I? But just to get back to the point, like, even religion further divides into different sects and how they, interpret things. You know, there's a divide between Protestants and Catholics, and that further divides into things like Presbyterians, Methodists, Baptists, Jehovah's Witnesses are in there somewhere, and Eastern Orthodox, Western Orthodox, Coptic, Egyptian style, Ethiopian style, list goes on. Muslims divide into Sunni and Shiite. I could make comments about, well, I should probably stop talking about religion altogether at this point because this is really off topic. But the point is, you could interpret the same sort of religion in a different way. Such a thing exists. And so they're like, my God I worship is a God of peace. He's created all this wonderful things and good things in life. And then other cleric says, no, that God you worship, this is a God of war. It says, you must do this and you will not do that. And if you do, you'll be punished and blah, 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 moralizing. Just to give a generic example. This video has rambled on for long enough, I'm sure.
Watching, and we'll see you in the morning in the GA.